as I'm listening to you, I'm looking back on the last, 10, 12 years of my life and seeing how much I freaked out about the wrong things.
Yes.
And that's something that I feel like I try to help myself with, or my wife, our family, us together, and just like friends and people that are in my life is like, I think we have so many questions about so many things. I think I'm learning that a good question a lot of times is like, am I even concerned with the right thing?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Indy Young Professionals Podcast, where we help 18 to 29-year-olds be great adults. We're going to interview leaders throughout the city of Indianapolis and talk to them about some of their successes and failures so that you can learn from them as you walk along this journey of life.
All right, everybody, welcome to the world's first episode of the Indy Young Professional Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Chad Freege.
Does that mean I'm number one?
You are number one. Yes. So we are having our first episode. I'm extremely nervous. How do you feel?
Man, I'm like not shaking, but I'm shaking.
That's true. You're made for these moments.
Man.
We are going to have a 30-minute episode, and so when our episode is over, you will hear this sound.
I love that.
Is that pleasant?
Yeah, it really is.
Perfect.
I'm going to change my ringtone to that
okay,
after
great.
this.
So when that comes on, we'll stop our conversation. We'll pick it up for week 2 so we can do some 30-minute episodes and try how that goes. Does that sound good to you? Perfect. So this is our first ever episode of the Indy Young Professional Podcast. As you know, we are trying to help 18 to 29-year-olds be great adults because 18 to 29 is full of so many questions. Did you have a lot of questions in your life when you were 18 to 29?
I did. And like, does that mean we have to be great adults now to be on the podcast?
That's actually great. Yeah. So Chad is my best friend and the CFO, right? CFO. What's your official title?
My official title probably on LinkedIn is general manager. But I'd change my title a lot as far as like, depending on who I'm talking to. Yeah, I'm the COO or like, I buy the janitorial supplies.
Yeah, totally,
or like,
totally.
Whatever.
So how old are you right now?
I am 33 years old.
And you got a family?
I have 4 kids with a 5th on the way. So that's what I was asking. Like, I feel like an adult sometimes, but I don't feel like I have it all.
Yes. Can we talk about that for a second? Okay, so I've started to be bold enough to share this with people at times, and I'm finding that I'm not the only one that does this. But like, I have an age in my head that I see myself as, and I think it's 12.
Yeah. Do you forget your age a lot? Because when you just asked me that, I'm to the point now where I'm forgetting how, but by only like 1 or 2 years.
Right.
But I'm in my mind right now wondering, am I 33 or did I just say 33 and I'm actually 34?
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure I'm 33.
I'm 30, so that's a pretty good mile marker,
That's
so it's hard
easy
to forget. All right, so let's get some context for who you are, Chad.
Yeah.
Tell the people, all the listeners from around the world, tell us a little bit about you. Where were you born, raised,
Should I do the
family?
church version? Like, I was born and raised in a Christian home.
Oh my gosh, you can do that. We are in a church, but this isn't
kidding.
like, you don't have to give a church answer because it's not like a church podcast.
So I am 33, like I said, born and raised in Indy.
Shout out Indianapolis.
Yeah, man, love Indy. Although I left Indy for college, but we'll get there later. Went to Heritage Christian all growing up, had 3 older brothers, my mom and a dad that loves Jesus. Both of them go to this church, actually. Many of you know my dad, Bill, and my mom, Sandy. So I grew up Heritage doing the normal sports school stuff. Did pretty well in both, I guess.
You were phenomenal in sports, Chad.
I did okay.
So Chad and I went to Heritage together. You were, what was it, 3 or 4 years ahead of me? How did we count that?
I don't even know.
I was a freshman,
Yeah,
you were a senior.
3.
That's when we became
Let's just
friends.
say that.
And Chad's nickname at HCS, X Factor.
Yeah, I have it tattooed still. I'm just kidding. God. It's a total joke. It's tattooed nowhere on my body.
Maybe it should be.
Gosh. So after high school, I went to Baylor University.
Sikkim Bears?
Sikkim. That is true, though. Like, I have some Baylor pride.
They are, what, number 8 right now?
Number 7.
It's number 7. When this podcast comes out, the season will be over, I think.
Yeah.
So
we might have lost.
we'll see how that ends.
Then.
We're definitely going to have lost by then.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
Hey, Sikkim all the way.
So went to Baylor. Double majored in entrepreneurship and finance. And if you're in Texas, it's finance, not finance. I learned that freshman year. I was actually corrected on that, so I still disagree with it. Like, I think it's finance.
Did Blaine McCormick correct you?
It might have been him,
It
actually.
probably was him.
Yeah, so it was very early on that I was corrected. So loved Baylor, met my now
You said
wife.
entrepreneurship and finance?
Yep.
Finance.
Finance. So they have a really good entrepreneurship program.
That's right.
Really just business school in general. Were you in the business school?
Absolutely.
That's what I thought. Way to go.
Thank you. Business management.
Yeah.
2012, Sycamore Bears.
Okay, we're getting off track now, but
No,
we can talk about the hand camera.
Hand Camera Business School. It's
Yeah.
brand new.
Yeah,
Now.
that's awesome. So double majored there. Met my wife first week of school, and didn't know obviously at the time that she'd be my wife, but actually knew about 2 weeks after that she would be my wife. Honestly,
And she knew that too, right?
no, but she didn't. It took her a long time.
Okay, let's talk about this. We're gonna pause here.
Okay,
we're gonna pause here on the
pause.
whole story. Okay, so let's talk that whole
Oh
situation.
my goodness.
So obviously everybody's got a different story with
Mm-hmm.
relationships and everything. Kind of a big part of our life.
Yeah.
I know that for me, my friends, people I'm friends with now, well, everybody in the whole world, relationships never stop getting complicated and are like such a integral part of who we are, the life we live, all of these sort of things. Obviously, the whole like dating, who am I going to marry, all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. Tell us a little bit about that. So you meet Karis and you're like, I'm down for this, or
Yeah, it's a good question. I went into college thinking like I don't want a girlfriend,
Right.
And I was like following God at the time too. And so it wasn't like I want to go party or like hang out with a bunch of girls. It was more like I want to find my wife, and it's not going to be very convenient to do that in freshman year, you know, like because then you just have a totally different
Yeah.
plan. You're not gonna go meet a bunch of girls. It was like the high school Chad in me. Karis is gonna punch me in the face when she hears this, but
She
it's
will
like
too.
it's not like I wanted to just date a bunch of girls. It was just I wanted to have fun in college. I didn't want to have to worry about girls.
Yeah.
And so literally, it was my first. I don't think it was my first class of college. It was the first day of college, Christian Scriptures class at Baylor. Karis Boylan at the time walks in.
don't say something you're going to regret. I've heard you tell this
I
story
know.
before.
Karis Boylan walks in. She's gonna be mad at me anyways.
Oh, gosh.
I'll make a long story short.
I tried to help just for the record.
I basically like just turned my eyes like, don't look at that girl. like she probably doesn't love Jesus, so don't waste your time.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, okay. But then I saw her like a few days later at a church party, and I was like, oh no, she does love God. I need to go introduce myself.
Oh my goodness.
So at that point,
let's pause on this for a
Yep.
second. So you've talked about how your parents love Jesus and you keep talking about following God and all that kind of stuff. So another big, I think, thing is like, what does things like religion or faith or anything like that? So we are shooting this in a church, but you know, a lot of different people are going to listen to this.
yeah.
Why what have you found along the way that like that journey of like not there's like the faith journey, I think, and a lot of people have a lot of questions about, you know, just the general stuff like, does God exist? What's God like if he does exist? All these different religions, all that kind of stuff. But then I know for my life, I know this is true for you too, like I had kind of landed there on like I believe in Jesus and like grew up in church and like I did the Christian thing, but there was still then a disconnect of like, what does that have to do with my life?
Yeah.
And so you're like breezing over some things that I think are really huge. Like, what in the world does God, if he's out there and all that kind of stuff, have to do with something so not spiritual, quote unquote, as like some relationship? And it just sounded like, you know, you've walked that journey of figuring out how does some of that even integrate into your life.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I'm hearing you right. Of even when I go back to what I said about not wanting a girlfriend,
Yeah.
it was more about, I think in the back of my mind, because I was trying to follow after God, I had my whole life, I had just learned from people. And I'd learned the good and the bad. As far as my brothers had made some mistakes growing up, I'd had some really good mentors. And from an early age, and this really comes from my dad, so I can really thank him for it, but just seeing like what works in life and what doesn't. I remember at a like 6, 7, 8-year-old boy, as a 6, 7-year-old, 8-year-old boy, hearing my dad talk about the businessmen he was meeting with that had all the money in the world, Chad, but they're fearful, or they weren't happy. And at that time I was like, oh, that sounds weird. Like, I would think that if you had all the money in the world, like, I started being introduced to these concepts along the way, but then meeting people that had gone through stuff as well. It was really cool just to see God bring certain mentors, leaders, even your dad in my life at a really young age. I've known your dad since I was in kindergarten, which is really weird.
Crazy.
But just hearing different mistakes people made, and I did a pretty good job, I think, learning from people's mistakes of like, wow, that choice led to a lot of brokenness for this person, or that led to this, which, okay, how do I avoid doing this? And I kept running into this same road of Jesus, like, this guy is actually happy, or this guy hasn't messed his life up, and this guy hasn't done X, Y, and Z, but he doesn't seem to even want to do X, Y, and Z. Like, I got away from religion, I feel like, at a pretty early age, and I say that in a good way. I got towards relationship pretty quickly. Of following rules isn't going to get you anywhere, and just doing the church thing isn't, because I was just surrounded by that. And I think I was figuring all that out, but I kept running into these roadblocks of wanting something real and authentic, and seeing it in different people around me. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I think another thing I hear you hitting on, I think is so good, that you're talking about how you watched people, and then like you had mentors and stuff like that, which is amazing and such a gift. And like, I don't know, I think you're like me, you kind of fell into some of those.
I was just gonna say, all of them. It's not like today where you find somebody that's really successful and be like, hey, you want to grab coffee?
Which is awesome.
Talk with me?
And which is awesome. So amazing. I think I hear you talking about, and I know this is true about you. You're like you're a pretty intentional observer and learner, and it's cool to hear you talk about how you just like watched people and sort of drew some conclusions and responded in some of your own ways. I think that's so good, because I know that, like, we're talking about the years of college and 20s and everything, and like everything's so full of transition all the time, and like so many choices. And I know for me personally, and all my friends, as we've lived life, and again, people that I'm living with now, it's like, it's just scary to like go through all these things and wonder like, what do I need? What's going to make me happy? What's going to fulfill the thing? And there's so many different options out there and thought processes. Like, you said, well, I don't want a girlfriend. So many people are like, well, I need a girlfriend, or I don't need a girlfriend. I just need to go hook up with people, or I need to do this, or I need to chase that, or the money, or the whatever. I just think it's cool that you're talking about how it was so valuable to be around in your life. It's been so valuable to be around people from other generations. I hear you saying, you obviously you watch some of your siblings and stuff, but I don't know, for some reason it feels like it's just like worth saying it's okay to watch other people's lives and be intrigued about what you see in their life that you like, and to make adjustments about your own life, even potentially about things you don't like. I guess that can sound so like judgmental, but it's not necessarily right. It's not necessarily judgmental. It's just like, man, if you made that choice and it leads to things that I think I actually want, maybe I should lean into that a little bit.
Especially if you are willing to have that conversation with that person, like you said.
Yeah, and I think that's the next step.
Distance and observing, and then you're like, hey, you mind if I ask you why? Because a lot of times they're willing to share their story, testimony. Totally. I feel like you find that in business a lot. You find somebody successful, and the first however many hour long of your conversation is just hearing all the failure they had, or they started with. I was just listening to some Mark Cuban thing the other day, which it was just super random. He started his business with $8,000 or whatever. He sold it for 5.2 billion, and it was
pretty
like,
good.
Yeah, that's what the guy listening to him said too. He actually said some other choice words, but it's interesting. Just you assume certain things, like they've got it all put together or whatever, and that's kind of my point. Of I learned from an early age that no one's perfect. Even my dad, who I really admired so much, would just admit that he wasn't perfect to me, or like, you know, I'd see some flaws here and there, but he was a pretty perfect guy in my eyes, honestly.
Yes.
And just to hear him talk about how much he needed God and how much, you know, certain things didn't satisfy or what he was living his life for, just really threw me for a loop. And so I think a lot of people, especially that are listening to this, we're all going to have different backgrounds,
right?
But we can all agree on we need to just look to Jesus, depending on where you came from, whether you came from a Christian home or not. It's something that, we can get into success and what is success, but it's
I think that's
some
good.
of those thoughts of why are we living our life, and what's going to actually lead to success and happiness.
Yeah. So you're talking so much about like building a value system is what I hear you talking about. And I know that I had some people share that with me along the way, and still even today, like, and I'm just 30, you're just 33. Like I still feel like a baby in life for sure.
I'm so much older than you.
You are so much older than me and so much more mature for sure. But I'm thankful that there's been people along the way to like help give me perspective. And I think that as I'm listening to you, I'm looking back on the last, 10, 12 years of my life and seeing how much I freaked out about the wrong things.
Yes.
And that's something that I feel like I try to help myself with, or my wife, our family, us together, and just like friends and people that are in my life is like, I think we have so many questions about so many things. I think I'm learning that a good question a lot of times is like, am I even concerned with the right thing?
Yeah.
And what I hear you talking about is as you're looking back, like you haven't really mentioned much about any choices that you made, or I mean, you said where you went to school and what you majored in, but it wasn't like, and then you got this or did that, or what are those things like? I think this is true, is that so much of life, and even like early adult life, I'm finding still, it's like I got to decide what my value system's going to be. And then that will determine the people that I put around me, the things I do and don't do, the things I pursue and don't pursue. I don't know. And you keep talking about God. You just said, no matter where we come from, we all need to focus on Jesus. Like you have this big conviction that this man Jesus shapes your value system. And I just think that's wise and helpful. And I've found that helpful to like, even today, right now, I've got stuff on my plate that I'm like, I can get really anxious about, and I'm trying to learn how to like chip away at some of the things I'm freaking out about, or I can get anxious about, or I can get worried about or concerned about, and be like, is that even the thing that's worth being concerned with? Is that making any sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. Or yes, it makes a lot of sense. And I think I could get off track with just that part of it, because like you said, today there's certain things that are like would weigh heavy on you.
Yeah.
And I feel like today I have the same thing, but there's a lot of other things. Like some people know my story with my son and just some things that have happened the last couple of years. It's funny how we think these things are important, and then something actually really important drops in your life, and all these things aren't important anymore.
Wow.
And so when I look back on even my college years and even beginning of business, I was just you're learning how to handle life. I remember certain emails at the beginning of my career just throwing me for a loop for like days. And I think back on like what those were, or like how God covered me, or just how it all worked out. I'm just like, man, I wish I wouldn't have wasted so much time worrying about the wrong things, or I wish I wouldn't have gone home from work that night and been stressed and not just hung out with my wife and had fun. Or like my kid, now it's like my kids. I wish 3 years ago when this business issue was going on that it didn't consume a month of my life, even though I probably appeared like I was okay, but for a whole month or whatever. There's just certain things in life that you're like, man, I wish I could get that back. But
do you have any like specific examples that come to mind? Something that totally messed with you in the moment that now you look back on and you're like, wow, that was hitting on something. And I think a specific example is important, because a specific example can be can be kind of a microcosm of more of a macro thing, like a macro worry.
Yeah. I would say there's a good example. I'll kind of leave some names out, but it was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
If it was me, you can just
Yeah,
say.
yeah, exactly. Like our business was growing. We were kind of on the edge of like some breakthrough.
Yeah.
And we had been putting a lot of emphasis with this one customer, and we were going to get what we thought was probably our largest order ever from them. And everyone would know who this person is or this company or whatever. But, and then I remember one day, and we did some test sites with them. We're in water treatment, so we usually do like test sites and things like that.
Okay.
And we got this one email one day about like, hey, one of your test sites failed. Like the project's off. Bye-bye. You know, like you guys are. And so like this is a family business. So when you get emails like that, it's almost like they say to you, you are a failure. Like your stuff is a fail. You know, you'd start.
And I don't like your dad either.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like identity stuff. It's like, oh my goodness, like we've failed. Or like you just start to think that way. Well, you have to always start having those conversations. Okay, what failed? Let's talk through it. Some people don't even want to talk. They think you're trying to scam them, or they think like, well, you're a failure. We don't talk to you. So has been times where you can't really have those conversations, but luckily they're willing to get into the details, look in time after time. It seems like getting into the details and allowing good conversations to happen, you start to, the pressure kind of comes off of like, okay, no one tried to, mess with anything here. But at the same time, it turns out it wasn't our fault at all in this instance. But those emails and phone calls lasted like 2 months.
Yeah.
Like, so we got the email from the time of we resolved the test or issue that didn't end up being our issue to begin with. It was like months of my life that I was like kind of on pause in my brain of like, man, this is like a game-changing thing. So fast forward, we actually ended up getting the job that we wanted. It was a big game changer, but that's another lesson right there is like you're looking to this next thing to be like, man, if I just got this job or this raise or this career path, I'm set.
Yeah.
That never happens either.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm learning just as much as, okay, don't worry about things as much. It's, hey, don't expect just to arrive one day and be, you always say, faith takes faith. Yeah. Don't expect to wake up one day and not need faith anymore. Right. And for me, a lot of times I fall back into that trap of if our business was just at this point, or if we had this or didn't have this going on, life would just be great. Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense. Something that goes along with that I'm thinking about is I'm trying to get language for it right now. But I just think like anxiety is such a big thing. It's like, because it feels like everything is changing all the time. And I guess from something that kind of language that I would have for something that I think I've kind of been learning along that same vein is like very few decisions are like permanent decisions. Yeah. Although that even doesn't come out great because like every decision you make it once and then you did make that decision. But I guess, for example, like with the job, mess your life up with, or not everything's going to crumble with one little thing. Well, sort of. You think it's going to. So like, let's talk about jobs, for example. Like I remember graduating from college, just trying to figure out what I was going to do next, and all of my friends are in the same boat. Yeah. And like the amount of pressure. This is a great question. I love talking about this. Okay. Because I know where you're going with this. Do you? I think. Interesting. Because I don't know where I'm going with it, so I'm excited where you're going to go. But the pressure was so intense. It felt so intense that like wherever I move to next is where I'm going to live forever. Whatever job I do next is the job I'm going to have forever. Whatever roommate I move in with is going to be my best friend forever or not. Or like all of it's like this next thing, I better get it right or I'm stuck forever. Yeah. And that pressure is just like brutal. But did you have that pressure? Did you ever feel it before that point though? Because that's where I was going to go too. Is I was just having this conversation with somebody. I remember because as a young kid, and it's funny, my wife makes fun of me because like I think I had a fear of failure from a young age, and I'm not sure where I got it from, but like elementary school, you're like, ooh, middle school is such a big deal. You better do well in middle school because then it prepares you for high school.
Right.
And you have to do well in high school.
Right.
Because if you don't do well in high school, you won't
get
go
into
to college.
Right.
And if you don't go to college, then if you don't do well in college,
right.
you're not going to get a good job. And if
you don't get a good first job,
you'll end up being a pastor.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for that.
I'm just kidding. So it was like, I look back and think how much I stressed over like college and grades, and I ended up working with a family business. Yeah. It's almost like, man, I wish I would have not done so well on some of those tests. But like, I'm glad I did things with excellence. So don't get me wrong. I'm glad I did get good grades in college, but there was a level of anxiety, but more like fear of failure. Yeah. Because I didn't know I was going to work in my family business for a while. And then come senior year, I kind of knew, but I still like, I got to graduate. So I can't not do these things. And just the excellence in me, I still wanted to do well. Yeah. But man.
Maybe where we're different, and I could put the wrong language to this, but I think, so to answer your question to me, I don't think I felt it much before the end of college because I wasn't worried about it. Yeah, exactly. So like your way, I would say you were more concerned about like achieving the right, like what about achieving things is maybe the word I would put it. Whereas when the like pressure kind of came to me, it was more about like passion and like, am I going to be alive? And I mean, it's like everybody, we all feel that, but to you, I think it was like, am I going to be able to do all the, like, am I going to be good enough kind of a thing? Yeah. And for me, it was like, what if I do it and don't like it? And then I'm just like drowning in mediocrity on my insides forever and blah, like go down the dramatic like spiral of my life on it. Yeah. But I think it's a similar thing, but I think we are wired a little different. So I think we probably felt it at different times, but either way, it's like this immense pressure that whatever you do next, you better nail it. And you better have picked the right road to go down. Because once you pick it, you're in that lane for the long haul. And sorry. Yeah. And I think that there's so much value in kind of like we've been talking about, just like trying to get the right perspective on what's worth or what really is the super permanent stuff. And I think that's where like a lot of the values comes in. And I know that was a tool somebody gave me along the way, which is essentially evaluating decisions based on values, not just based on like activity or outcome or whatever. It was like, hey, you've got a long time to live actually. Like you're 24. And you feel like you're behind, but you're really not. You're actually just getting started. So what's more valuable than you having your dream job right now is you actually having a job where you can learn the most. So that might include doing a bunch of stuff you don't like on a task end, but it also definitely means learning how to open up your eyes, like you were talking about when you were little, learning how to develop the habit and the skill of watching the people around you to pick up skills, but also to pick up values and outcomes and all that kind of stuff. Like, learning is so much more important permanent than like activity.
Yep.
And I think that takes a lot of pressure off.
Yeah. And I know I made the joke earlier, but that's why I have a lot of respect for you. You made decisions to become a pastor. Like you could have easily done other things, like you could have really taken the same path I did or gone into something else, but you were gripped by your values and what God was calling you to, and you knew what was on the inside of you to become a pastor and a leader. And I think that's really admirable. And so I think that's the harder road to take. And a lot of some people probably go into ministry for the wrong reasons, but that wasn't you.
Yeah. And I just think that we can make decisions, learning how to make decisions on like the values is what is ultimately going to tap into like the passion stuff or the achieving thing or the whatever, like, cause there's never ending comparison to other people. Like somebody has always quote unquote done more and better than everybody else.
It's funny how that works. Huh?
Seriously. Like even whoever has the most money, somebody else has done better at whatever. So like that drive of like, I have to do everything the best all the way in every category. Yeah. It's like
there's always somebody.
Yeah, it's brutal. It'll just kill you.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to get away from that. because I think so. Like it feels like a rat race so often. It's like I got to stay ahead, and like I just got to nail this next thing.
Yeah, I feel like we can spend a lot of time on that, and
Totally.
maybe we will in part 2.
Part 2. Are we almost done? Oh, we'll go ahead. Okay, great segue, Chad.
Yeah.
Instead of getting the here, I'll make the.
You got to still make the noise.
Oh, there we go. That ends our time. 35 seconds early. Awesome. Well, thanks for checking out the first episode. We're going to pick up this conversation for next week's episode. We hope you check it out. And don't forget to share with your friends if you learned something helpful.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Indy Young Professionals podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and hit the subscribe button on YouTube as well as the bell so that you'll be alerted when we release new episodes. You can also follow us on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you want to know more about us and about the people that we're interviewing, follow us on Instagram @Indy Young Professionals. Thanks. Have a great day.